From HanselMinutes.com, it's Hansel Minutes, a weekly discussion with web developer and technologist Scott Hanselman. This is Lawrence Ryan announcing show number 561. In this episode, Scott checks in at Connect in New York with Joel Spolsky from StackExchange StackOverflow.
Hi, this is Scott Hanselman. This is another episode of Hansel Minutes. I'm here actually in New York at Connect. We're backstage. I'm here with Joel Spolsky. How's it going?
Hi, Scott. How's it going? It's great to be back on Hansel Minutes.
Yeah, it's been a while. I've been on StackOverflow podcast a couple times.
It has been. We need to get you back, by the way.
Yeah.
We're doing that every week now.
Seriously?
Yeah.
That's cool. How many episodes are you up to now?
50, 60,
bajillions.
90. I don't
Yeah,
know.
a lot.
93.
A ton.
We kept changing the name of it, and then we had to reset the numbers.
Oh, really? What is the name now?
StackOverflow became StackExchange, and then it became StackOverflow again.
I didn't even remember. I didn't even notice that happened.
Now it's just clown.penis.fart.
Thank you for already having me bleep you out within a minute of the podcast. So I didn't even remember that. I know that you were StackExchange, but I guess the zeitgeist was always StackOverflow, so that's why you went with the name.
Yeah, after years and years of trying to convince people, no, StackExchange is the larger thing that includes a StackOverflow. StackOverflow is really sort of at the center of what we do. And so,
when I think of StackOverflow, though, I think of StackOverflow, Server Fault, and Super User.
Wow, that's old school.
And then long tail is long.
150. Yeah. Really, the long tail is not, I don't want to exclude anybody, but math. So Math Overflow, Mathematics.StackExchange, a lot of other slightly smaller ones like statistics, probability, and that kind of stuff. But really, math is huge. There's a lot of different languages now. So StackOverflow in Russian, StackOverflow in Japanese, StackOverflow in Spanish. Those are really big and fastest growing. It's probably StackOverflow in Portuguese and Russian, I think, are two giant Stack Overflows.
Really?
Yep.
And see, that's the thing, right? Like, math isn't my thing. Portuguese isn't my thing.
Nope.
So it's easy for me to have blinders on and not even know that those exist. It's like ORCID, right?
Yeah.
Remember, you know what I mean?
Remember
ORCID? Like,
came and went and never used it once.
Right, but it was huge.
Yeah.
Right, so like...
That's what they say, big in Brazil.
I was talking with Jin Yang, one of your designers.
Our creative director of Stack Overflow.
Yeah, and a good friend. And one of the things that I love about him and his design philosophy around these Stack Overflow, StackExchange, other sites, is he really tries to understand the audience to make sure that the theme fits. It's not just
what they want and how to make it for them. That was something really like Jeff Atwood also was very much about, like, this has to be your site. If it's the I don't know, WordPress site or something. If you're a WordPress person, you really have to feel like this is your site. It's not just like a little colony that the overlord set up for you.
Yeah.
And Jin really takes that all the way through to the graphic design, which you see, not just him, there's other designers too that work on the new sites, but every new site that comes out, like a lot of consultation with the active people in the community about what are the right, what's the right font, what's the right colors, what are the right symbols, what's the right logo.
Yeah. And I remember when it was just Jin.
Yeah.
And then I remember when he was trying to hire people now. So now he's got a team.
And at that time, we used to joke because we would look at these other companies. We'd be like, did you hear Twitter? Twitter has 40 graphic designers. And we'd be like, what do 40 people do there? We couldn't even figure it out. It's like they put birds on things.
Resize PNGs?
Yeah, I guess. But I don't know why they had so many. And now we have a dozen or so. Stack Overflow.
That's a big deal, though. Like, is that representative? Is that emblematic of the growth of Stack Overflow?
Yeah, so the company is like 300 employees as of today. So
seriously,
it's a pretty big company.
Do you know everyone?
Absolutely.
No. But it's getting to the point where it's like, I know that I graduated with 300 people.
I probably forget more people every day than I meet.
Yeah.
It's kind of going down.
That's like, there's a legitimacy, though, to a 300-person company that's a little bit overwhelming.
It seems sort of real. It's all those people, like, we think of them as like the little birds with their mouths open, and you got to fly back to the nest and give them a paycheck every 2 weeks.
And hopefully they do great work.
Yeah.
How many people are at FogCreek?
Fantastic. FogCreek is about 35 people. Trello is about 100 people.
100 people.
So 3 companies.
3 companies.
Yeah.
Are they co-located at all? Or is that a way to like cut costs, or how do you do that?
Not quite. Well, all right. So let's see. Stack Overflow, they're all headquartered in New York, but they all also use a lot of remote workers. So most of our development teams, community teams in all of these companies are remote people that we hire wherever they may be.
Really? Then you've really pioneered that. Like, companies like Microsoft, even remembering that I'm a remote employee,
sometimes they forget,
are super not remote friendly. And it's just, we're constantly teaching them. And Stack Overflow, they're unapologetically remote.
It's more than that. It's that there's a huge difference between being the remote employee at a company that's not really focused on being remote, where you really have to work hard to remind them that you exist, and to like not get forgotten in a meeting, or you go to a meeting and they turn on a little TV screen and then it's sort of like the connection goes down.
You're
in the middle,
singing my life.
and they
Thank
forget you. And so for us, everything is remote first, and the teams are remote first, and there's not enough people in any one place that any meeting could ever be held in person. And so the assumption is a meeting is going to be online. Mm-hmm. And that kind of makes a big difference, both in the kind of people that we can hire, in that we can hire great people all over the place, much lower turnover. I guess we don't lose employees so much because we're often one of the best employers in, I don't know, Uruguay or Arizona or someplace that doesn't have as big a tech scene to compete for our great employees. So yeah, not only unapologetic, but really happy about it, and just the quality of the work has been much better because of the high quality people we've been able to hire and keep, and the fact that they've been with us for years and years. So very happy about that for the most part. There is a Trello and FogCreek shared office in New York City, and those are sort of the headquarters of those two companies. But it's the same office. Like that office probably holds 50 something people, and everybody else is remote.
And is the intent to make I've been to those offices. They're amazing. You know, you've done blog posts on like why it's important to have a great office if you do have an office.
Yeah, we do. We still work on that.
You know what I mean? Is there an intent to have like a center of gravity that's just so awesome that you would just really want to come into work?
There was historically, we used to say, you know, like we kind of want to, all else being equal, we'd rather have you in the office. But I think now, just for pure financial reasons, all else being equal, we'd actually rather you just stay at home wherever it is that you live.
Financial reasons, like because of the lights.
We don't have to pay for an office.
Pay for the office and lights.
Like in New York, it's expensive, and and given that we get the same quality of work out of people wherever they are, the fact that they're in the office just means that we're also shelling out for an office.
I've talked with a lot of remote employees, and I've felt this myself that because I'm remote, I'm afraid that the boss thinks I'm just hanging out.
That's interesting. I always thought about the opposite. I mean, maybe, I don't know. I don't know if you code, Scott.
I do, but the point is that
kidding.
The point is that I have this, I believe, and forgive me, the audience who is listening, that I believe that there's a low self-esteem, for lack of a better word, of the remote employee.
Yeah.
And we try to overcompensate. So I believe we work extra hard. Yeah. And we have a tendency to have some work-life balance issues where we work remotely to have work-life balance, and then we stay up all night because we're afraid that the boss thinks we're just hanging out.
Right. You can just time your emails to go out at different times.
Yeah, that's a strategy. Just do them all in the morning and then leave.
Compose a draft and then send it when you're at dinner. Actually, my theory is if you're a boss and you're looking around at your team and your team is all sitting in a long table in one of those Soho startups around the corner here,
right,
where they all sit at a long table, you're sort of judging people based on, did I see them at 7:00 at night right before I went home?
Right.
If you don't have the people sitting there at that table, you judge them by their check-ins. You judge them by the actual work that they do, not by the, button in seat. And contrary-wise, it's not even a word, if you're one of those employees and you're sitting there in Soho and it's 5:00 and you're exhausted and there's nothing left that you can do, and it's just time to go home, or you're nervous about your kids have been dropped off at school with a thing and whatever, who knows, or, your new Apple MacBook Pro has just arrived and you want to go pick it up before the UPS station closes or whatever. Whatever it is that's distracting you, and you're looking and you're like, oh, your boss hasn't left yet. And so you're on Reddit and you're doing things online.
Right. You're moving the mouse.
Moving the mouse and just all tabbing into your Visual Studio.
I was in
2012, 2017 for Macintosh edition.
Nice. I was in Japan, and again, in no intent to make stereotypes, but in the office I was in Japan for the time that I was there was I won't leave until the boss leaves.
Yeah, that's a rule.
And that's
in Japan. And
so awkward.
Yeah, that was sort of a rule in America in the 50s and the 60s. They told everybody, you got to do that. You got to come before the boss. You got to leave after the boss.
Because of that judging gaze.
And it was just based on, what they called, butt in seat time, and not based on anything realistic about the work that you're doing. And when you have a remote team, you really can only evaluate them based on the actual work that they did and their actual productivity. And it's just so much easier just to see like that person is fixing bugs and checking in code. I mean, that's a much easier way to evaluate somebody than trying to remember if they're at the office a lot.
Yeah. So what about like soft skills? Like I work remotely.
Yeah.
I have a team that works for me. I've got someone in Philly. I've got someone in New York. I've got someone in Northern Ireland. And ultimately it's like, are the Trello cards moving to the right?
Cool.
Is kind of all I have that I can judge that they're doing well. As well as every Monday they send out an email, which is here are the things I'd like to get done this week. Right. And they tell it to the team. It's almost like a stand-up that's an asynchronous stand. It's a commitment. Yeah. And then Friday, this is what I accomplished. And it's very honest. We try to say, here's what we did not do. Here's how we failed.
Right.
And then we ask ourselves, is there something that another member of the team could have done to have made you successful? Mm-hmm. And then Monday we try it all over again.
That's nice. You do need to institute this. I think everybody should institute them. I don't think that's that's specific to remote work. Mm-hmm. Like everybody has to figure out how am I going to keep people, accountable and keep people moving forward and keep people understanding what thing it is that they're trying to move to the right, whether it's cards on a Trello board or some number that they're responsible to increase. Like my job is get more people to sign up for StackOverflow. Mm-hmm. So, at the beginning of the week, I want to have some metric, and at the end of the week, I want that metric to be higher. Mm-hmm. And figuring out what it is that you're really accountable for is important. I mean, like that's the hardest thing I've discovered. Like as I grow into being the CEO of a larger and larger company, discovering that it's harder and harder to figure out how to do that as the companies get more and more complicated. Mm-hmm. There used to be a time if you're a company with 12 people or 35 people, right. You all have lunch together, you talk about things, everybody understands what you're working on and what you're looking at. But at some point it kind of breaks down and all of a sudden you discover that somebody has just spent 6 weeks working on something and you say, why'd you work on that? And they're like, no. And you say, well, what's really important to us is getting more people to sign up for Stack Overflow. Mm-hmm. And they say, yeah, well, theoretically, this will get more people to sign up for Stack Overflow because, the colors that I chose are nicer than the whatever. And so more people should, did you measure how much that impacted? Right. And you discover, one thing that I recently learned is if a developer on a dev team is even 5% off on what the mission is, they can do 100% wrong work. If they don't exactly understand, what number am I maximizing? What thing am I trying to get? They can do something that kind of inadvertently, if they think the goal is to get more signups for Stack Overflow and they say, hey, I'm going to work on, I don't know, maybe let's show fewer ads so that we can get more, right. Maybe people are more likely to sign up if we don't show ads so often. And that's just their theory. And then they could spend a year working on that crazy theory and not move the needle at all in the number of people signing up for Stack Overflow because their understanding of what we meant by that was just off by just a tiny bit. Right.
And it's no malice at all.
No, not at all. Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
At a giant company like Microsoft is weird because, we worked there in the 90s, right?
Yeah.
How big was it when you were at Microsoft?
5,000.
Seriously, 5,000?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, like our division's like 5,000, right? Yeah.
It's a big guy.
No, it's a big company, but like now we're like 100,000, right?
Yeah.
But it's 1,000 little companies of a couple hundred people each.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like I only interact with a couple hundred people at a time. So I feel like I work in .NET with a couple hundred people. But the biggest issue that we have is when people are working on stuff and they have no idea that someone else is also working on the same thing.
Right.
There's these silos.
We're working on the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Even when I was there was this famous story. I don't think I was there, but at some point, Bill Gates said, how many people are working on rich text editing for Windows right now? Mm-hmm. This is Windows 3.0 did not have
I remember.
a common rich text editing control.
Right.
He assigned a guy by the name of Bill Johnson to go count. And he came back and said 123 people in the company are working on a rich text editor in some way, shape, or form. And there's like 19 of them. There's Mail and there's Word and there's Write.
Right, exactly.
How many other?
We have those conversations now.
Yeah.
I got in, I wouldn't say trouble, lowercase t trouble, when Ballmer was still the guy, when I said, I made a tweet or something and I listed out how many paint applications that we had, you know what I mean? Like different apps for drawing stuff. It's more than just Paintbrush, right?
Yeah.
Because there's like, the insert paint drawing thing in Word and and it's just like, how many things do we need for painting? Or photos? There was a time when there's like 5 different ways to view
Everybody
photos.
wants to be like a photo album.
Yeah, and hopefully we're getting those things fixed. But that sounds like that's just an organizational thing in general.
I don't know if that's the end of the world, really. I don't know if you can make a company with 100,000 people and really only have one team.
Well, but see, the thing is, then
that's a huge strategy tax, right?
Then they give it a name called co-opetition. You know what I mean? And they think it's a good thing. And then you basically, let's all make our rich text editor, and then we'll have them fight in the BattleBot, arena.
Right. I don't know. It may just be a question as to whether a company can ever really get to 100,000 people and still be productive in a way, or does it get any kind of does it have a disadvantage or an advantage over the company with maybe 100 companies of 1,000 people,
exactly,
or 1,000 companies of 100 people?
And to the Xamarin acquisition point, not screwing up Xamarin, I'm sure is high on someone's list because it works.
Yeah.
It's small, it's tight. They have a different remote policy. It works really great. It's now part of a larger division.
Yeah.
How do you integrate it without breaking what made it awesome?
Right.
Yeah. Is your company now, is StackOverflow now the biggest company you've ever been the boss of?
Yes.
And every day it is the bigger.
It gets bigger.
It is the biggest company you've ever been the boss of.
Yeah.
Do you have a preference between 300-person company and what I think of as like a high-end boutique? Because when I visited you at FogCreek, I was like, wow, because I love the idea of a boutique. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to be Macy's. I used to work at a consultancy in the 93, 94, and the older gentleman who owned the place, said, "This is my retirement. You are my legacy."
Okay.
There's 35 of us.
I can see that
we have it did actually. It's still around.
Oh,
he made a 35-person boutique.
Yeah.
And he says, we're paying the mortgages and the rent for 35 people. This company will go, public and maybe fail, but we have value, we have quality. And so there's something to be said for that. Like, when do you stop? What happens if Stack Overflow becomes 100,000 people? Like, that would be a failure or a success?
I think that might be a failure. And a lot of times, you can't call it you can't call it either. I think so first of all, look, of the companies, the 100,000 person companies are, the Googles and the Microsofts and Apples and so forth.
And GM and on.
Yeah. Are often they're trying to do a million different things. They're trying to do it globally.
An alphabet of things even.
Yeah. And, that's sort of just a different universe than when you're trying to do one thing and get it right.
Yeah.
The difference between a boutique of like the 50 people versus the 300 people is that in the 50-person company, you kind of look around and there's really nobody to do that thing that needs to get done today.
Oh.
And so as CEO, you do it, or you have somebody who's unqualified to do it. Try to do it in some kind of hacky kind of way.
Right.
Where you're like, hey, we need to, I don't know, build out or whatever today.
Sure.
Or we need a new payment processor, or we need somebody to figure out the 401k plan, or we need, I don't know what it is. Like any number of things that get done.
Some expert thing.
And you just end up either telling somebody to do it and they have no idea what they're doing, or you take a programmer off of programming to work on the 401k for a while, or whatever it is. It's not really, really, really optimal. Once you get to 300 people, then there's this long period of time where every time the conversation is, look, we really need a thing X, and therefore let's hire an expert in X. And you just start hiring individuals with skills to do all the different things that need to get done. And you almost like forget what it was like to just have somebody who didn't know how to do that thing do a, 90% job.
Right.
And then just move on because it's not critical to the business.
But now you've got these companies, you've got 3 companies that are like an order of magnitude. So like you might visit one on Tuesday and then go to the other one on Thursday. Can you borrow people between companies?
Not so much. We've done a pretty good job of separating them now. So I'm 100% the CEO of StackOverflow. Michael is 100% the CEO of Trello, which is about 100 people. And I'm just the chairman of the board. So really,
you're chairman. So you don't have to worry about that day to day.
Nope. I got a board meetings and I got to keep the dog alive. Taco, who's my pet, who's also the mascot of Trello.
Yeah. So when you hear these stories about like, Jack is going to do Twitter and the other thing at the same, he's like 200%. He's on 200%.
Yeah, that was a little bit weird. But who knows?
You're not a fan of the doing. You're not doing that. You chose not to.
It's not impossible. I mean, like
like
Microsoft
Elon Musk, right?
15 businesses.
But Elon Musk does that too, right? Like flies between SpaceX and Tesla.
That's true, but I mean, how many businesses of SpaceX size are there inside of Microsoft? You can have a CEO of 93.
Well, I guess we call them vice presidents and stuff.
Or if you count Google as like Gmail and search.
Well, yeah, that's why they changed it to Alphabet. Now it's going to split off into other things, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I guess there's probably, I don't know how many EVPs at Microsoft. There's probably a bunch of 1,000-person companies.
Sure.
A ton.
Yeah.
10 or 15.
That are, $500 million companies if they were their own company.
Yeah. Mega companies themselves.
There's a lot of them. And then the old FogCreek is, we recently hired Anil Dash to be the CEO of FogCreek. So we now have a full-time CEO of FogCreek as well. So again, that's a place where I get to be chairman of the board. Just come in and they tell me what they're doing, and I say that looks good.
And then that's great. So then now we like to talk about put all the wood behind one arrow. You focus on signing up more people for Stack Overflow.
Yeah.
I thought that when Stack Overflow, that the jobs board came out, Stack Overflow, what's it called? Careers?
Today we call it Stack Overflow Talent.
Talent?
Yeah.
That was really smart.
Yeah.
Because there's so much sloppy job boards out there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And ultimately, no one wants to make a resume. No one wants to fill out a resume. Like that part from an engineer's perspective, like I haven't updated my resume. Like this sucks. I look at it and like, oh, this sucks. I don't want to find that word template. You know what I mean?
That's kind of over. But from an with all due respect to a $26 billion company inside your company, LinkedIn, the developers don't really like that style. I don't know if the salespeople that use it do, but I know business people and networking and healthcare executives. I know a ton of people who get jobs on LinkedIn, but developers, I get more email randomly from I saw your your number 1% of whatever in Stack Overflow. They come straight for me. Yep. So that's kind of the plan. I think right now we're probably number one of the niche job boards or whatever. But ultimately, that's our goal for Stack Overflow, is to be the place where developers keep their developer story, which will replace their resume. The developer story is it's not just where you worked, but it's a blog post you might have written, or something that you learned, or a class that you took, or a class that you taught, or all that kind of stuff that adds up to, here's why I'm a great developer and you should hire me. I made that app and I did that thing. And that's Anil previously worked on a thing called MakerBase, which is sort of aimed to be the IMDb of programmers. But this idea that programmers work on things and they want to show those things, and a resume is this ancient format where you list companies that you worked for and schools that you went to, and it just doesn't really correlate to the things that you made and showing off of the stuff that you've done.
I was a huge fan of what Anil and Gina Trapani did with MakerBase. It's IMDb for creators, for makers. I made a thing, put it all in one place. When there are social developers, I usually use this term, social developers. I believe that there are, for every one or two social developers, there's some number, 10, 100, 1,000, that are
dark matter developers.
Dark matter. Apparently it's come full circle now. The dark matter developers, right?
Yeah.
The space between the stars. But there are also people who choose not to be visible.
Right.
How does a Stack Overflow, a GitHub, if I have an avatar that's, a kangaroo, or I'm not a, straight white guy that says, here's my face and here's my name and here's my phone number, that doesn't want to put that out. How can I be a successful, somewhat anonymous, person in this world?
You can create a developer story on Stack Overflow, not make it visible to employers and not visible to the world if you don't want that to be necessarily a public thing. But that's not the truth is 100% of these people have their resumes out on LinkedIn. It's so even the so-called dark matter developers.
They're all there. I see what you're saying.
I'm pretty sure that they'll be.
I wonder if I could make a developer story though as a pseudonym, as a nom de guerre. Yeah. And then have an anonymous remailer like Craigslist that then says who I am.
I'm in favor of that. I would actually, the one thing that I've been kind of begging people to do, especially minorities and women in the tech industry, is try to be more visible, even if you don't want to use a name that can subject you to a harassment. At least be visible as a role model. In other words, use an avatar. If you're a person of color in the tech industry or a female in the tech industry, just use an avatar that doesn't even have to be you, but that represents yourself, so that you can serve as kind of a role model for people coming into the field, so it doesn't look like the field is monochromatic and male.
Yeah, it's good that you're thinking about those kind of things. One other thing I want to take a dramatic shift because my wife found one of your YouTube videos.
The one
that's called "That You Suck at Excel."
Oh, okay. So first of all, before we even mention this, have you seen "You Suck at Photoshop"? Because I just copied the.
Is that what I've never seen that
video called?
Because there's people in the comments arguing about why does he think he's so good at his Excel and why did he name it that? So what is the context of the "You Suck at Blank"?
No, the context is that I have now spent my whole career sitting with frustration watching people whose titles are things like CFO, et cetera, who are like, oh yeah, this is Excel is like I know everything in Excel. And then they don't know like R1, C1 notation, and they don't understand why cut and paste.
That's a controversial notation that you propose is the way in the light.
The way to at least understand what's going on under
you're
the
not
surface.
an A1, B1 fan.
Yeah. It's cute. It's charming.
It's the default.
I know. It's the Fisher-Price mode but it's okay. Go ahead. Enjoy it. You're just never going to understand why cut and paste does what it does.
So that's a bit of Excel bigotry there. I feel that way about Word when I will get a resume. I joke about this, and don't read too much into this, but you hit the paragraph mark in Word, and it's all spaces, and that's how you did a write a line.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of personal strength to not, delete that.
All right. How are you not entirely doing all your formatting through styles?
I've thought that I could quit my job at Microsoft and I would be the Tony Robbins of reveal codes of Word, and I would just travel the world explaining to everyone how a tab stop works. Yeah. And it would be life changing because I did a video on that.
It might be. I think there's the Excel users though, I don't know. There's something about Word where people just need to get it done, get the heck out of there. Whereas the Excel users,
you can't be sloppy.
If you're an accountant or something like that, if you're in any kind of data analysis type field, you're in Excel for 7 hours a day, and this stuff will really, really help you.
That's a good point.
I don't know.
Well, with Word, you can make it pretty, turn off reveal codes, and say, "Look, it's pretty."
Yeah.
With Excel, you can't really fake it.
Kind of, and it's going to break later. And it's really with Excel, you're building a program. I mean, the reason you're doing it in Excel instead of just doing it in a calculator is because you want it to be able to redo. You see, you're writing code, and all the reasons you want your code to be robust, the same reason somebody might want their Excel spreadsheet to be robust. So after years and years of discovering that none of the people that claim to work on Excel really even know, I just made a list of all the things that I just wish everybody would know, and did a little presentation for my 3 companies where they could just sort of.
It was an internal presentation, right? Yeah. You're a little crass in the thing, and people are like, "Why is he talking like that?" Yeah. Like, well, I don't think he ever expected he would put it out, right?
And it was also so there's a very, very funny series of videos which everybody should go look on YouTube right now, called "You Suck at Photoshop," which purport to be a tutorial for Photoshop, being told by somebody who is in the midst of a mental breakdown, a divorce, and you hear his wife yelling at him from the background.
Oh, no. And is this real?
No, it's a comedy, but it appears to be just a grumpy Photoshop tutorial. Okay. And so I sort of started with that idea. This is going to be a grumpy Excel tutorial. And when I sent the email out to the company, of course, the subject line of the email was "You Suck at Excel," and quite a few people came and told me they thought that I was actually writing them an email. They're like, "Oh, I just got an email from Joel Spolsky,
personal.
the CEO.
The CEO says,
send me a personal email saying you suck at Excel.
See you in my office soon." Yeah. Well, it's a lot of fun. It's a cool video, and it's worth taking a look at.
Thanks.
Yeah. Now with the Joel on software, how often you blog anymore?
No, that's because
that was
need to bring it back
the legendary archive.
I don't even know how to publish to that anymore. I mean, I do theoretically. There's a VM somewhere.
Make sure you keep the domain paid for.
Yeah, the domain's okay. I've even got a team of people working on moving it to WordPress, but so that if I ever need to publish again, there's going to be a way to do it. I just don't. I have not had time to write anything there for quite a while.
You remember when you started that?
1999.
Yeah.
Was the first post, and then 2000 I started kind of in earnest when I left my job at Juno. I had I think like the whole summer off. Like I had a pretty I might have left in February or something.
Those were the golden ages. That was the time.
That's when blogging was cool. Yeah, and blogging was a thing. And there's sort of a weird thing that happened with Twitter, I think, really, and Medium, is that the idea of a bunch of individuals publishing their thing in their own little world and just hoping that people find them.
Yeah. As opposed to someone else's walled garden.
Yeah. As opposed, right. It's like we don't want to be in somebody else's walled garden.
Right.
It's published by ourselves. And that seems like a kind of a great idea, but it doesn't really give you a distribution.
Right. The network effect. So people have noticed that I've started posting to Medium for my non-technical stuff.
Yeah.
But the trick is you say import story.
Okay.
And it sets rel equals canonical in the metadata.
Yeah.
So then Google knows that it's the canonical version of that URL is on your site, thereby maintaining your Google juice.
Okay.
So I write it first.
Yeah.
I import it, never copy paste.
Right.
Otherwise it's duplicated content.
Yeah. And then Google gets really mad.
And then Google gets mad. But then this way I get the network effect of Medium, but I own my words because I truly believe you should own your words.
So that's a cool thing. I believe that too. But what's really happened with, I think, everybody that's tried posting on Medium is discovering immediately that the distribution is much higher.
Sure.
And it's not just that; it's Facebook and Snapchat and Instagram.
It's text box and a button. It's very easy.
It's easy, and it gets you some kind of distribution, and you get followers. Oh, and YouTube. And the thing about YouTube is you tell people to click on the subscribe link down below, and they click on it, and now they get your future stuff. Yeah. Whereas with the web, back in the old days of RSS, you were just on your own to get people to come back.
Yeah.
And it never really built up. And it's sort of sad because there was a potential to build. I think Dave Weiner to this day is still saying, God, I wish we had just made Twitter as a federated system instead of a corporation.
Yeah. There's those of us who think they should have done that. Because one day there won't be a Twitter. And for a lot of us, Twitter is the internet. But I've been blogging now to April of 2002. I'm not as OG as Anil and you, but it's like 14, 15 years now. I'm not planning on stopping.
No, and the content is still viable. And you know what? I think it's developers get in their own little world. Like IRC is still
it's still a thing.
Going strong. Developers get in their own little in VI. They get in their own little weird world of developers. It's weird that developers are not early adopters.
Yeah. When we like a thing, and we stick with it. Yeah. Well, the handlers are looking at us here through the door and saying it's time to go. So
that's what that is.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, can I get you on the Stack Overflow podcast sometime?
Let's do it. Let's make it happen.
We can call in. We can do it over Skype.
I've been using Zencaster. Have you seen that? It's a fantastic app that uses HTML5 and WebRTC.
Yeah.
Records it and uploads it to the Dropbox.
We tried. It wasn't quite reliable enough for regular podcasting.
Yeah. I've done the last 20 episodes with it, and they just went 1.0. It's glorious. Give it a try.
Okay.
Hey, thank you for hanging out.
Hey, thanks for having me.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, and come tell all your listeners to go subscribe to the Stack Overflow podcast.
Yes, if you are listening to my podcast and you don't have a Stack Overflow profile, go make your developer story. Check out Stack Overflow. And,
StackOverflow.com and StackOverflow.blog is where we do all our blogging now.
Very cool.
Do you know there's a .blog
is it
domain?
There's .ninja also.
LD.
Yeah. All right. This has been another episode of Hansel Minutes, and we'll see you again next week.